Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post for Parashat Vaera is titled Freedom from Emotional Suffering. This week's parasha we start to read about the makos, the process of the freedom from Shibud Mitzrayim. There are 7 in this week's parasha, 3 in next week's parasha. This is a gradual process of HaKadosh Baruch Hu bringing the Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And the Medrash Tanchuma points out that the stages of the makos, each makkah reflects the stages of military warfare, of human warfare, of a military campaign. For example, Dam is like the stage of besieging a city, or cutting off their water supply. And continue, you could say the frogs is like the loud noises of an approaching army trying to intimidate the other army. Kinim, the lice, is like arrows, and so forth. It goes on, sending in mercenaries, sending in a larger army. Each stage of each makkah is a template for human warfare. And what we see is that the Bnei Yisrael could not release themselves from their slavery. They needed this military campaign. They needed HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the military leader to bring them out of slavery. As we read in a few places in the Gemara, Ein chavush mateh atzmo beit hasurim, that a prisoner cannot release himself from his enslavement, from his imprisonment. He can't release himself from prison. He needs somebody else to get him out, to liberate him. And this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for the Bnei Yisrael through the makos. And we see that the Shibud Mitzrayim and the liberation from Egypt was a freedom both physical and spiritual, as they came out and then went on to receive the Torah at Har Sinai, and they became Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, with the Torah and the mitzvahs. And we can relate this process also to emotional pain, to psychological suffering. Now, the person who is in psychological pain, for example in depression, they are so alone, they're in a dark place, this dark prison of emotional suffering, where they are so alone and detached from anybody else. And it's almost impossible, they can't release themselves from this emotional suffering, from this emotional prison. They need somebody else. Now, obviously we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our tefillas that He should help us, that a person can be helped when they're suffering emotionally, but it cannot be underestimated the role of a friend, of a family member, of a communal leader, a teacher, a therapist, who can be there to help a person, to release them, to help liberate them from this emotional prison. So how do we do this? How does a person, how are they able to liberate another person from this emotional suffering? There's a few points. Number 1 would be to educate yourself, to raise awareness so that you can notice the signs of emotional suffering, so you can spot the indicators when a person is in pain, is suffering emotionally. And there's also, perhaps it behooves the community as well, on a communal level, to raise awareness, to have lectures, to have discussions, both to decrease the stigma against emotional suffering and psychological health, but also to raise awareness on a communal level, that people can see and notice when another person is suffering. And this leads to the next stage of being there. Once you have noticed the signs, how can you be there? So it's not actually so complicated. Just being there, a physical presence, when a person knows there is somebody there, somebody is holding their hand, somebody who's just there for them, already starts to decrease the sense of loneliness and detachment and despair that they're experiencing in their prison. They have someone there with them. And then you can go on and ask, what can I do for you? What can I do right now that will help you? Try to be specific and say, how can I help you at this very moment? That in some way might be able to decrease the pain that you're experiencing. And finally, also, as you're doing this, you need to be patient. You need to show understanding and to also have determination to go through a long process of helping somebody. It requires you also to try out different things. And we see with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's a gradual process, one makkah after another, until finally Bnei Yisrael were able to leave Mitzrayim. So be determined, be patient, and be understanding. And through this, you'll be able to help a person be able to be free from their emotional prison. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.